And this is Wombat's City Hostel at Naschitz Mark, which I think means a marketplace. There are two of these. One's called the Lounge, and it's not too terribly far away. Some of the beautiful old buildings here in Vienna, just outside of Midling, just across the street from my hostel and near the underground. This looks like a huge square, and it may be in a technical sense, but it doesn't look like it's been capitalized on in that fashion. Sunday, and I just got here around 12:30 or so I'm just going to, for fun, just start wandering what amounts to being the west or southwest, and then wander back and have dinner at the little restaurant nearby. I'm a little deeper into that square. That's the subway line over there on the left, and it could have been magnificent, but it appears that it's just a giant parking lot now. Or I believe is a large supermarket with its faux Greek or Roman statues. I have no idea what it is yet. Quatera Zoo. Looking up, as in Berlin, to see the interesting architectural nuances. Don't know what this church is, but I'm not going inside of it now because I just bought an ice cream cone. Interesting, that spiral is a design element behind the church. That kind of interesting roof detail on that building. Mariahilfer Street, I think, is one of the main pedestrianized shopping streets. We'll be on it more than once. This arcade of trees reminds me a bit of Barcelona, but not too much. Looking down the side street, we get a little hint of how this might have looked 100, 150 years ago all over this area. Still a lot of this presence here. You can imagine when this might have been a very important intersection. Lovely, cool, shaded street. A nice breeze blowing down. The pink building caught my attention, so we'll wander down this street and then return. And lots of McDonald's. I wonder if they were always painted just a single color like this one. I wouldn't think so. I would hope not, since the potential with color would be so much greater. 1891. What would it be like to put something like that on my condo deck? Would it be even allowed? At this point, Mariahilfer Street changes character as it aims for the West Bahnhof. And right at this intersection, this somewhat interesting building. Notice how they've mixed classical sculpture type things with modern. Interesting chunk of architecture that is. Wonder how it functions. Wonder if function had any drive in its design. A couple of restaurants and this classic pub. Nice little neighborhood park, principally for kids, but also for people to sit and relax and the old men to play checkers. This big tree attracted my attention. Such a tree in an area like this has to signify something. Yeah, that park wanders over quite a ways. Since early days, this little area might have been a quaint little center for these people that live here and any little businesses that serve them. Walk back up the street here, see if we can see more of that park. Basketball court, swings, and over there, ping pong table, and the kids play castle, for lack of a better term. Storefronts and the bland facades of these buildings belies the fact that inside those perimeters must be, particularly at the upper levels, a huge density of people. Whether there's a square that's like a little mini park inside of these blocks, I don't know. Cause it seems like a pretty building just from the color alone, not to mention the gold accent of those birds up on the top, which we'll go up and take a look at. Funky little Triumph car. Huh, it's cutie. Wonder if it's an antique or if it's new. It looks like it's new. I'm just wandering down streets like this, going from park to park just to have an excuse for a direction, but you get to see things. I went by a little shop where a man's an artist and he has it like a garage door. He opens it up and he's just sitting in there painting, so you can watch, look, or buy. In the neighborhood, there's a church, I'm pretty sure, an old one. It's just squeezed in. Did the wealthy people who built these other homes grant this little chunk to a church just so they'd have one? Or am I wrong? Is it actually a town hall or a village hall that had these other big buildings grow up around it? I think stat refers to something along the line of City Hall, Town Hall, something like that, like Rothus does. And everywhere I walk there are little cafes and restaurants. Not open much today, a few are. Here's the park that I saw on my maps. A bike lane, so I guess it is safe to ride around, relatively speaking. Probably serves this whole neighborhood. What lies behind the perimeter of the streets. Give us a little hint as to what's behind the street facades. Even looking back over there, we can see there are backyards of some sort in addition to this park. I don't know if I can walk through there. Something like that with almost 5 stories on top of the first 2, suggesting that's all retail up there. This stands out on the street. It may have been a wealthy person's home. And you wonder what caused all this terrible kind of architecture. It's probably intellectually unfair. See, they just built whatever they built right up against that thing and right out to the max property line. Made it almost as simple as you could, except for the embellishments below. There's an older building next to it. Here's church. And it looks like some storefronts here that might be old and original. Whatever that means in cities of this age. To me, what it means is you see these large windows. Just has the look of old. Reminds me of my grandpa's store in Brandon, Manitoba. Imagine the whole street like this. This entire window frame is a door. This whole front window is a door that can be opened up for presumably putting in your decorations or your store displays. Now we're going to turn at this intersection to the left and start working my way back. Now this certainly has gotten my attention, if for no other reason. Its rusted out, weathered look gives it authenticity of age. Is it possible this was the grand entrance to some wealthy person's structure? A little bit closer look at this older detail. Imagine what this was like when it was brand new. Imagine what lay behind this entry gate. This pretty balcony and oriel window. This little series of buildings has some authenticity in my mind historically, because it's only 2.5 stories high, 3 if you consider that attic to be a story. And To its left is a very modern and full 4-story building looking totally different. These look like there may have been an earlier time when land was not as valuable and when perhaps building technologies were not as good, or the demand for such units was not that great as it ultimately became to justify these buildings that are now directly across the street from it. These large entryways, which to me suggest carriage entrances. You have a large carriage entrance in the center, I'll call it that, and then 2 more moderate, perhaps, people doorways. And this building looked to be 9 or 10 different something or others, houses, homes or businesses. This says Vienna Beer House. Maybe that's its lineage. The far right end of those buildings. And notice it looks like it might have had a nice backyard at one time. All closed off now. Seeing that tubular looking device is a way of getting access to the roof. It may also serve a function for fire escape. I'm guessing it predated the yellow building and all these other big ones around us. It was so special that guaranteed at its time its future to today. Did it get torn down and become one of these blah things and get more nondescript utilitarian? So I wandered far to the east from my hostel. And I'm now crossing over from that street on the left to another street on the right. But this is very much, I think, the same artery that I crossed over that has the tram or underground in one part of it. Notice there's the underground. But then I refer to it as a large parking area when it could have been a square. Is it possible that that whole what I call the square was actually this covered over? Notice here how a deck has been formed out over the tram system or the underground system to provide a little park area. How cool. This is a nice little parklet right in the midst of all of these residential, but I think principally businesses. These buildings with their lovely balconies. Don't know if those are called oriel windows or not. I'd call them balconies. And that building over there, I wonder if these buildings reflect the ambience that that little intersection we were just at used to have. I was thinking all of this was cement, but it looks like it's wood. Now this has all the trappings of power and importance, and perhaps gives us a hint of what that older one we looked at earlier was like in its day. Reminds me of the embassy enclaves in Cairo. Interesting how the wrought iron's been used as a decorative for the surface. I wonder if that gray building was the anomaly in its day that it looks to be now. Nice that there are little mini tree parks or parklets to break up the monotony of these big buildings. Kaiser Wilhelm I statue, I guess. Again, some older buildings with some interesting design for a quiet little spot. Wonderful that an old facade like this has been left intact on this building. It looks like it's a medical supply store right now. Perhaps has been so from 1857. I wanted to get a closer look at this building. Interesting. I like these, whatever you call these, tower-like rounded corners on buildings. First saw it, I think, in Venezuela, in the capital.